Welcome to Crossing Phase, the podcast where a Christian and a Muslim talk religion and politics. My name is Matt Hawkins, and my conspirator is John Pinna,
They
coming
make
live
it
to
sound
us
like I
from.
start conspiracy theories. You know, we do dispel some though on
Is
this.
it too soon to say unindicted co-conspirator?
I think we all are now. I think
Sorry.
everybody's not a co-conspirator or something now. So I have no idea what's happening. But no, it's
Anyway,
good.
John and I used to work together in Washington D.C. for several years. I'm now living outside of Nashville, and John is coming from upstate New York. And we're here to talk religion and politics. And rarely is there a topic that's too awkward or too controversial for us to jump in with both feet. But we try to bring some levity, and I try to keep John on the rails, and we try to have some fruitful conversations. So if this is your first time listening, welcome. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, if you're watching here, we're available on YouTube. John, what's on your mind this morning?
Nothing much. I mean, it's the beginning of season 6, so I'm trying to figure out what was going on because we talked about the riots and we talked about all these other things, but Turkey's banning the evil eye charm.
Evil eye charm. Now, what does that mean? You're talking about this in the context of Turkey, but I don't know what that means.
So certain Muslim communities, not all Muslim communities, but certain Muslim communities believe, and the title of the article is, where do we have it here? Turkey's religious authorities denounce evil eye charms. Now, anybody who's been to Turkey or really any Muslim country in the Maghreb, maybe even in the MENA region, you'll see these little, it's like blue, white, blue. It's an eye, and it's a charm that that's supposed to ward off the evil eye. So Muslims believe, some Muslims believe that with a look, someone can cripple your soul. So you need tchotchke, special kind of tchotchke, special kind of charms to ward off the evil. Okay. So like my mother, she used to take, when I used to buy a car, she used to take a red ribbon and tie the red ribbon around the steering column and then take change and throw it all over the floor. And you couldn't remove the ribbon nor the change because they were somehow, it's better than insurance, than car insurance.
Interesting. All right.
So I have change all over the floor of my car that my mother threw there that I don't touch because somehow that protects me in the car, right?
And then, so it's like a talisman of sorts.
Yeah, it's a talisman. Yeah. Tawiz, they say in Islam. So I usually have a necklace that has a prayer on it. Okay. That I wear all the time. I don't have it on because I forgot at my mother's house, and I'm being extra careful, right? So, because I don't know, it's like you guys with the cross, you get you get the cross necklace or whatever it is, you guys, or the fish, right? And so, so I'm like, I'm being extra careful because even though my parents are 35 minutes away from me right now, I'm not driving to go get it. So my tawiz is at my parents' house. So I'm sitting here and I'll read this article. It says Turkey's religious authorities denounce evil eye charms, and says the state-run body says that the evil eye-shaped blue amulets believed to date back to 3000 BC are incompatible with Islam. And I'm sitting here going, from Islam Muslim point of view, it was like, that's what you're singling out? That? It's like looking at Christian nationalism and saying, you want to know what? We're going to just focus on the hats. Focus on the red.
That's the real problem. The red hats.
The red hats are the problem. Nobody should be wearing the red hats. And if we do that, everything's gonna be good. So, but I figure, the question I have for you is what's the evangelical equivalent to the evil eye? Like, I know Catholics have something's going on there, and then Eastern Orthodox, there's a whole bunch of things they could. Yeah. But in your community, because what's the deal?
Yeah, I don't know. Anything that's worn within, the Protestant Christian community, it's going to be an emphasis on symbolism and not any kind of supernatural power.
What
those
about you
kinds of
hanging in the
things.
house? What do you hang something on the house to ward off evil? You know, like Jewish communities, they have
Yeah.
that thing on the door. I can't remember what it's called. But they have the
Yeah, I know
mezuzah
what you're talking about.
on the door. Mezuzah on the door.
It's not, I mean, in the Christian, I mean, at least in the North American context, in the Christian world, there's not much as far as like warding off uh, evil spirits. There are some folks, us included, more recently, who display Bible verses on the wall around the house. So we have a few of those that are artistically done, but there's not like a supernatural spiritualism about it. Those kinds of things, to the extent that they're present in an American Christian context, those are probably going to be more culturally derived than anything spiritual. It's not something that we can root in our theology.
I would equate it to like the horseshoe. Don't you put a horseshoe up or down on a door? Isn't that what happens in the South?
Yeah, that's a Southern thing, but that's not a Christian thing. And in any event, Christians would shy away from that because it has to do with luck and superstitions and that kind of thing.
Right. Well, that's what the evil eye is. It's not really a Muslim thing. It's like predates everything.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. Is that something that comes from theology and a scriptural text, or is it just more of a cultural, regional kind of thing?
No, it's like 3,000 years old, and like it's just like the horseshoe. And to me, like if you're Muslim and you need a little thing. Like I always talk to Mama, and I have this tawiz where she writes a prayer out, right?
Okay.
And then she puts it in, she sews it into something, right? And then you wear it. And I always tell her it's time to rewrite that and redo it because the batteries ran out. That's what I always tell her. She gets mad at me when I say the batteries ran out on the tawiz, right? So and then she gets mad because she has to sit down, she's got to go through a whole song and dance, and she's got to write the stuff out. And really, I just want her to do something for me. But it does carry a little bit of weight. I have like a prayer that my mother wrote, right? That Mama wrote out in her own hand. You know, like it'd be like, you know, your best, you know, Bible scripture, whatever it is, what have you.
Yeah.
And writes it all out, and then she folds it. And so it's, you know, it's something that she did thoughtfully for me, that is to protect against, you know, harm when I'm in a war zone or something like that. And yeah. I carry it with me, you know, I do it because I feel like I'm carrying her with me and her goodwill with me, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And so I don't know how religious that is, even though there's a religious thing to it, but it's not really a requirement in Islam, and it's really more cultural because than anything else, and more familial than anything else. Yeah. But it's taken on this religious thing, much like the evil eye amulet is like a talisman to keep off. But they've been doing it for 3,000 years, 4,000 years, before any religion. What's the difference? It's like the horseshoe. I mean, is it really a Christian thing? No. But then can you say that if you believe in good luck and bad luck, that becomes a religious deal?
Yeah. Now that we're talking about it, there are a couple items, culturally speaking, that are around here. I don't know how widespread this is, but these little teeny tiny metal crosses. They're super thin. They're small. They're metal. Some people carry that around either in the Bible, or some men will carry it around in their wallet. In which case, over many years, it gets even flatter and thinner.
It must wreak havoc with the metal detectors.
Right. Well, that's right. It's a different era. It's probably not enough metal material to trigger that kind of thing. And then some women will have like a little, in their Bible cover, a little like some of my in-laws, they'll have a little angel pin that sticks like in the top corner of their Bible.
Like, I'll show you what I have.
It'll be like right. Oops. Well, I guess it'd be right here.
Probably the big no is to leave, you know, in the middle of a podcast. But I did. So this is what I carry with me all the time. So in here is the sajdaka, right? So that's from the ground, and there's ink on it. So that's where I put my head when I salat out, right? So that's from clay from Karbala, from the ground.
Okay.
So holy ground, essentially.
So, and how long have you had that? How long have you had that?
I've had this one for close to 15 years.
Wow.
Like it's like missing a little bit of a chip on that side, some ink is spilled on it. It's like, I don't know, maybe every time I put my head on it, there's like some kind of mark. So, and then so this is a Taoist. So I hear, so here it is. So I'm mad at Mama because the package that it was encapsulated in is gone. And then if I open it, see, it's all discombobulated.
Delicate.
But if I open it, it's a prayer. See?
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what does the prayer say? What's the gist of it? You don't have to read the whole thing.
I mean, it's a prayer that's specific to whatever it is at that time that my mother thought that I was being like, ailed with. So like this one is because I was going to foreign countries, and they're all war zones, right? And then this one is like protection and good health and that sort of thing. So I carry those two things with me everywhere. And then I carry, let's see what else we got here. I carry a coin with me, and I carry this, which is from my grandmother's dusby. Her didn't lose it, but it's there. It's just a prayer from a prayer bead.
Don't lose precious
It's fine.
Things from your family.
That's what this is. So it broke, as prayer beads, like and then I can't use prayer beads because I can't. It's carrying that thing around, and they always break. So I use an acorn.
Okay.
So I can when I do my prayers, I can actually tally them because I know which part of the acorn I'm touching. And then I have a coin that has been in the family from our ancestry that my great grandmother brought. So I've got that, which is a Bactrian coin. This is a coin from the 4th century. So these are the things I carry with me. But so I don't know if I'm like, I wouldn't say that any of this has to do with Islam, with the exception of maybe the Taoist and like certainly the Sajdaka. But I'm not, and I wouldn't sell it as Islam. Read the Quran, read Psalms, read the Torah, read Psalms, Torah, and the Injil if you could find it, and then and follow the pillars and be done with it.
And so did I miss it? Why is Turkey outlawing the evil eye charm?
I mean, is it there? So
is it an intra-Turkish cultural fight? Like what is that about?
If you're going to ask me, what I think is going on,
or don't you just saw a headline?
Well, no. Well, Turkey's trying to position itself as a leader within the Muslim world, I guess the Turkic peoples, spans all the way from Turkey all the way over to Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and so they're trying to come up with an authoritative stance in Islam, right? So this is like the most vanilla way to do it. They have this whole thing about this decree, and it denounces the use of ornaments, and then they're trying to talk about how it's forbidden, which I understand this stuff gets reviewed all the time. So like all the time, all Muslim countries go through this where they say what is and what isn't. And I think the problem is the only reason why this is heightened is that, I mean, it's like a national symbol. So, the problem is that if you could try to consolidate power as an authority within Islam, that's one, and you could trying to consolidate authority within your own country, attacking an ancient symbol of idolatry might be a way to do it. I don't know if it's idolatry or not. I think it's just really ornamental, at least from an outsider's point of view. But I do know that Turks take it very seriously.
Yeah.
So that's my take on this. But it talks about the ancient talisman. It goes into some of this stuff, and then talks about how it being a harmless tradition. But the stance is that this has come into their religious body and saying, this is one of the many things they were reviewing every year. And then this thing found its place to be in discussion, which is why there's an uproar.
Interesting.
That's the real reason. So, but you guys, maybe, right. So my question to you is, no, so you guys don't do talismans, although you did show bits and bobs, but is the reason why you don't have that talismans and stuff like that because you guys are popping exorcisms on demons large and small all the time? Because I see it on television all the time.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, for my Christian North American brothers and sisters, John here is picking here that, or he's indicating that his perception, rooted mainly in media consumption.
Well, we see it all the time.
You see it quote you see it quote all the time. What do you see? Tell me what you say you see.
Well, everybody, like, you can just pop into a church afflicted with whatever you're afflicted with, and then someone pops a quick exorcism on you, and then you're done, right? Like I see it. I mean,
well, Pastor Paula
was at the White House.
So you're mixing a couple different. Church,
yeah. And we see all this stuff going on where they go and they say, I'm having demon, I can't be successful because of a demon. I can't be it's the same thing as the evil eye, right? I can't be successful because of that, or my marriage is going wrong because of this, or I'm and then they grab the head and they push you off down on the ground. And then they wake up and everybody's singing, and which it must be refreshing because you're the center of attention for a moment, and then you get knocked on the floor gently, I think. And then you wake up and everybody's cheering you. It must be you're like the prom queen or king for like 15 minutes.
Split second.
It must be great.
Well, I think what you're mixing a couple phenomena. Number one is the faith healing, which is most of what you describe. And then secondarily, exorcisms, which would be the casting out of demons. And not surprisingly, I guess some of the I don't know, protocol is probably not the right word, but some of the activities surrounding those religious moments appear familiar. But your perception is that's what's happening in the North American churches from coast to coast all the time.
Every Sunday, this isn't happening. You're doing this every Sunday, right?
No, we're not. So what you're seeing is mostly what you're seeing is something called faith healing. Which is more prevalent in Christian traditions that would be described as Pentecostal. And so what that means is they have an extra value on the work of the Holy Spirit and believe in a little more kind of human-triggered, human-guided healing activity through the Holy Spirit. And so that trickles down into what they believe is to be faith healing. And that certainly exists. It's more prevalent in congregations that are described as Pentecostal and to some extent charismatic, but those words are not synonymous. And but I would argue that that's, while you see it in some big churches and prominent, particularly through mass media communications like the American thing called televangelism, I would argue that that's actually a minority expression of the Christian faith in America. In any case, it's because of the spread of Pentecostal churches in the global South, particularly in South America. It may be a little more common, but by and large, look at the denomination I used to work for, the Southern Baptist Convention. It's the largest Protestant denomination in the country. So second in size only to Catholics. We have, depending upon the year, 44,000 to 56,000 churches. And they would be an extreme, like decimal point minority of a church that would be doing that. And so you're on scale, you're immediately dropping down to, your Catholics, it's not going to be in that church. Southern Baptist, it's hardly at all going to be in Southern Baptist churches. Not saying it's not there. Southern Baptist Convention's a big tent, but it's going to be a distinct minority. And then you're going down to mainline denominations and other expressions of evangelicalism. So it exists, it's a thing, but like you would be hard pressed, even where I am in Middle Tennessee, to find that kind of thing going on. But you can find it. It's just not going to be the dominant expression.
Healing. So you're saying faith healing. So what about the demons be gone? What about the exorcism business?
Yeah, the exorcism thing in North America is going to be really rare. We were actually talking about this not so long ago in my seminary with a missionary who was born and raised in North America. I think he's from Georgia or someone in the Southeast America, and he's been in Africa, I think Zambia, for like a couple of decades now. So he himself doesn't really feel like he's a North American, Westerner. He feels the cultural conflict coming back into the country now because he's been in Africa for so long. But he describes how, particularly in a place like the African continent, African Christians are far more attuned and sensitive to spiritual warfare, which is the kind of thing you're talking about when you're talking about exorcisms. And they're far more aware of the presence of demons in people. And it's something that North Americans largely are just not aware of. Now you can debate, the veracity of when that happens, how it's confirmed. We're getting quickly, outside the scope of my particular theological expertise. But what's interesting is there's an interesting just different perspectives there contextually, right? So I'm going to get out of my depth, but I'm speculating here. The Africans, those cultures are already immediately or historically more sensitive, even before they're exposed to Christianity. They're sensitive to a supernatural spiritual nature that's present in their indigenous religions, right? North America is so heavily saturated by secular individualism that we don't see that, whether it's present or not. So it's kind of hard to judge, should we be doing more of it? Should we be more sensitized to it? Or is it just not as much a thing in North America? So that's a conversation, kind of an intra-Christian conversation that happens about those kinds of things.
I mean, but you guys believe in the hierarchy, and you guys believe in all that stuff, and so demons.
What hierarchy?
God and the inner circle. Archangel and Gabriel and all those. And then you got the other angels. And
God and the creation of angels, and there seems
you believe
to
in
be
that hierarchy, right?
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
I think our reading of the Hebrew and Christian Bible is that there seems to be some kind of hierarchy within the angelic ranks, but it's a little imprecise. Our knowledge of it is imprecise. But yeah, that's a thing.
Okay. All right. So I mean, because what difference does it make if you have an evil eye that wards off evil, or you're going to pop into a church and get exorcised for whatever? Really?
Well, a kind of Christian reply would be it depends for us on where we're putting our hope for relief of that spiritual ailment, whether it's a demon or something else. And so we're going to always try to redirect our understanding of power through the person of Jesus Christ, because that's what we believe Scripture to be. And there are otherwise explicit warnings against participating in witchcraft in our Bible. So we would see reliance on things like talismans and physical things as a departure, and that's something that would diminish our view or our reliance on the person of Jesus Christ.
Okay. I mean, I think we burn that city to the ground.
What else? What's up next? We've solved spiritual warfare, faith healings, and exorcisms. What's next?
Listen, I mean, if you need, it doesn't matter what faith you are. If you need a little talisman, it's okay. What's the difference? Why are they slaying this dragon?
It's definitely where you say outlaw in Turkey for the evil eye. Is that like a government outlaw thing, or is that like oh, interesting?
You're saying it's not compatible. So every year their body reviews issues, and every every country has this. And even though Turkey's a secular country, there is a theocratic peppering, I would say. And
yeah, that's what's interesting about the context that you're talking about this. So for people who are not familiar, Turkey has long been this kind of model of a kind of secularism in the Arab region, right? But that's been trending away from the secularism, right? There's been a heavier embrace towards a more theological.
Yeah, you could say, I mean, with Erdogan coming to power, last 5 years has been kind of heading towards this really conservative stint. And then you could say in the last 3 years is really elevated, links, there's been accusations of links to the Muslim Brotherhood and to a number of very to extremist sort of sects in Islam. I think a lot of that stuff, I think a lot of it can be disproved by, you have Erdogan who wants to remain in power, and he's trying to run his traps upriver, downriver, as many as he can. But I think that he is taking a more conservative stance. I mean, anybody who's been to Turkey, and Turkey has been a second home to me in the international development world. Look, you go to Istanbul, it's a free-for-all, right? But you go into the countryside, it's just a conservative rural country. And just like you would in America, if you were rocking into some southern town, where you got, in a southern town, you got a million different churches, right? And then same thing, to be a pantheon of mosques, and no one can belt out azan, call a prayer like Turks can. It's very, very beautiful. But I don't know, they've had their problems with the Eastern Orthodox Church. They haven't allowed priests to be trained, so the priests are just getting older in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and then and not allowing anybody to train, and they're demolishing monasteries and stuff like that. And there's been a lot of criticism on that. When it comes to their brand of Islam, the Turks are pretty mellow. They're pretty they're like Maliki, Hanafi. They're pretty mellow. So I to die on this hill seems peculiar. It's like you said, it's like evangelicals saying MAGA hats have to go, or not even that, red hats have to go. It's
or even tiny metal crosses in our pockets, right?
Right. I mean, like you need that, carry it. Who cares? If you need a little extra bump.
But it would be like a government trying to outlaw that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like saying, it just doesn't make any sense. And so the problem is that in this government, even though the religious body doesn't have the authority in their secular government, it has its authority from a religious and cultural context where people, that's why it's a headline. People will go, what, what should we be doing? And so I think that it would be very, very difficult for, if I was a Turk, to see that and go, come on. It's part of, it's like it's taking like a Greek, the Greek symbol of the helmet, and saying, the what is it called? The helmet the Spartans wore, and it's like saying that we're going to outlaw that, because it's not Greek. It's really from one city state, and we don't really want that to be like, so it's kind of weird. But I don't know, do you think, so I don't know, I'm just popping some headlines. I was thinking, what do you think about I only know one God, and that's me? What do you think about that?
So there's an article in The Guardian, I only know one God, and that's me, non-believers on the meaning of life. And so this is another journalistic take.
But you and I both are religious freedom guys. So we believe in the freedom to believe, not believe, change. We believe in all that stuff. But then you've got this, you want to save people.
Sure.
Right.
Well, I don't want to save people. I want to introduce people to Jesus so that they will be saved through him. But your shorthand is okay.
But it's not. So how does this
precision of language, John? This is my soapbox.
I just don't want to. I'm going to make sure that we, because I had a Jewish friend of mine, and he was very funny. He always says, "We don't Jew, we don't un-Jew." So if, it's just is what it is. That's what it was. Like it's the same thing with me. Like, so my sect, we're not like, I would say, listen, if you want to find religion, you have to muddle through that yourself. I mean, I can explain certain things, but right now it's not a good idea to be Muslim right now.
A rabbit trail for another time. Maybe we ought to have a guest for this, but Christians look at the Hebrew scriptures even, and obviously the New Testament, but we see non-Jewish folks being grafted into the Jewish faith pretty commonly.
Wow.
Through scripture.
I
mean, there's a whole book about Ruth.
Are we going to lead into this?
She was not. Ruth was a Moabite.
And the Torah, and how you guys. Because where I'm going to get into this, and how you guys editorialize the whole thing. Come on.
Editorializing. It's in the text. Ruth was not Jewish until she joined.
And throw that out. All right, so because we all know that's nonsense, right?
Rahab is in the lineage of Jesus and was not Jewish until she joined in. I'm just saying. Conversions happen.
Period.
Into Judaism. He was speaking pre-Jesus.
And then he says you have to adhere to the law. I mean, and come on, let's not go down this road tonight.
It's a long topic for another time. We're supposed to be talking about atheists and agnostics.
Let's my stance. My stance is very, very clear, about where Islam comes from. So, but you don't want me to get into it. So
not now.
You don't.
Not now.
Okay,
another day.
That's right. At a different time. So, everybody can believe whatever they want. I'm not saying anything is right, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to disagree on this. So, but we should get into it. But
let's get into the podcast, John. We're supposed to disagree.
Well, we'll get into this. Like, this is a profound disagreement. So we'll get into the origins of evangelicalism and the origins of Islam, and we can get into like our theological arguments. So let's do that. Let's do that. Maybe the next ones, because we get into it right now, it's going to be like a hate crime adjacent, and we probably won't be friends anymore. So let's just agree right now that we are. Then within 2 shows we'll talk about it. All right, maybe 3 shows, abiding that there's no crazy earth-shattering event. So all right, this is an article about atheists that I sent you to take a look at, and the idea is that my experience that atheists are saying that they're the only God, which is great. I think it's great. Good for you, Mike.
It's intellectually honest when they say that. Right?
I mean, my only problem with atheism and agnosticism, they just say religion is the a lot of the justification, or the justifications that you get from a good portion of that crowd, is that religion is the cause of all the problems in the world.
Sure.
And I'm like, so the second I hit that wall, I'm like, look, just, I don't care what you believe, and I don't care if you don't believe, I don't care, it's like, don't then proceed the conversation with all religion is bad and therefore, or it's all nonsense. When, I'm sure your religion has been there for you at certain times, where you've, said, I'm going to make it through this year if it kills me, one of those moments in time. And I'm sure you've had, your moments, those profound moments where you believe that God influenced that time or that place or that whatever it is. And atheists, maybe they don't believe, they just think that they're influencing all that time at that place. When something happens, it's just all on them, which is great. But what is it that you think when it comes to, around the world, growing number of people are rejecting traditional faiths and choosing their own spiritual path? Atheists and agnostics open up, which I appreciate an article like this.
Yeah. It's interesting. So they're highlighting a study from titled Understanding Belief by the University of Kent. This looks like a UK-based thing published in The Guardian. And so they're looking at these figures. The challenge is, so they're look for comparative numbers. So in the U.S., here in the U.S., those who say they are atheist, agnostic, or quote nothing in particular is up from 17% in 2009 to 26% in 2019 or 2020. Right. So in a decade, that's a pretty significant shift. Not necessarily news. In the UK, comparatively, more than half the population proclaimed no faith in 2018, figure that rose from 43% to 52% in a decade. So you're seeing significant shifts on polling data, religious surveys of people claiming either atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular. Now, what we haven't done is gone in depth into this data and figured out, how much is atheist, how much is agnostic, how much is nothing in particular, because this is where I'm cautious about articles like this. It opens up saying, quote, religion may have been the opium of the people, but in large swaths of the world, the masses have kicked the habit, unquote. So their limitation, I would critique the article in saying the world masses. They're talking basically about the UK and North America. You're talking about Europe and North America. That's, to me, is not large swaths of the world. And large swaths of the world, relatively speaking to the West, have not embraced the kind of secularism that we've seen in Western countries. And so two things can basically be true, again, to harp on another one of our soapboxes, is that there is an increase in people who are rejecting or leaving traditional modes of religion, organized expressions of religion, and claiming something else, right? They're not necessarily claiming atheism in a formal kind of intellectual decision, but they're moving to agnostic, or they're nothing in particular. And so this nothing in particular is the interesting thing, because it's hard to get a handle on to what extent those folks are rejecting super spiritual, the super spiritual outright, versus they're just kind of tired of the current modern expressions of their faith, right? And so they don't see themselves listed on the survey, right? They're gonna pick, none of the above, basically. What's interesting to me about that, that's fine. It's good. It's helpful. And look, Christians in North America know this. They're dealing with it. We've seen decreases in particularly mainline Protestant denominations for decades now. And one of the things that's interesting, though, is what you see from advocacy groups that tend to be atheists, and not a knock against them, just objectively, just an objective observation. They like to take the big number, it's more than the atheist number that includes the nothing in particular, and say, hey, those are our people. This is why you got to get on board for our atheistic lobby agenda. And I think that's inaccurate. That's my short commentary on that.
Well, I think, all right. So I always say religion's three things. I always say it's theology, community, and identity. That's usually what I say. And so you can be any one of those or all three of those, or any two of those. And I think a lot of people sort of back away from theology, so and are part of a community. So I find that there's a lot of people that are part of a community, and if they try and they don't scratch the surface, and if they start doing the math, things get a little bit hokey. So so I mean, that's where we get into the Capitol Hill stuff, right? So that's more of, I think, of a community than it is theology, and then individualism is sort of peppered throughout that. My sister is a good example. She's essentially a theological. So which one is atheists believe in what?
No God.
No God, and agnostics don't really know, but they don't really care.
Right? Well, you have to ask the agnostic. I think agnosticism is basically is a position that we can't know. So it's an epistemic claim.
Right. So I always say don't really know.
Sorry.
But the atheists are the ones, I always get the two confused. The atheists are the ones that say no God. So my sister has challenged her belief from this community theology and moved into the individual, where she now is Vajra, which is like she is and is in the music industry, and she produces albums that are religious have religious overtones. And she's just released an album that's Maya, which follows the Sumerian theology, and she's releasing stuff, and where she is essentially like a demigod or deity with her fans. So it's really interesting, and she does like all kinds of weird stuff with like rituals and stuff like that. So it's just a little snapshot about how insane my family is. So here we have this, so here we have like, and so I get it. I kind of understand where it's like, I'm my own God, and my sister, produces her own music, does all her stuff, but she puts all this stuff out there and has really created her own sort of, theology, and mythology surrounding herself. If I haven't done the math on her faith beliefs recently, and nor do I wish to, because that would end up with me, just getting into some kind of conversation with her. Not that I would tell her if she's right or wrong, but I don't have that kind of time to devote to whatever theology she is creating and establishing on this planet. But a lot of people do, and within her fan base. And so, I think it's a natural evolution of individualism to want to start to discard the community and create your own, and then discard the theology and then use it like a salad bar, right? And the challenge with that is that then you have to kind of put in the work to create your own mythology and your own, and hopefully have followers, right?
Well, I think that's what's interesting about new religious movements and things that happen in the kind of the humanist context and the agnostic context is what ultimately happens is kind of like you just described. People end up creating movements, big or small, that look a lot like the stuff they rejected. Right. So you start collecting rituals. It's some kind of doctrine, some kind of followership. Right. And so it ends up in a lot of ways, even though it's different and doctrines would conflict with religious practice that they rejected, it ends up looking a lot like traditional religions eventually. And what's interesting in the atheist situation, it's interesting because they have a hard time gaining kind of cultural, at least in the US, kind of cultural influence in a meaningful way, even I think at the local level, because there's nothing drawing them together regularly, right? Well, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday people, right? We all have weekly gatherings. Right. And there's a power in that, culturally speaking and community speaking, that atheism just doesn't have unless they frankly fabricate it. You have to make something up because there's nothing there.
Well, there's a universal.
We're gonna get together. We're gonna get together and
complain about religion.
Well, we'll complain about religion or convince each other that there's no God. Like it's not an inspiring. Nothing against.
I don't know if you haven't been on TikTok, because I like most.
I definitely have not.
Most of my TikTok sort of like community is it's Christian, Muslim, Hindu, atheist. I'm on. So I listen to a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of atheists on TikTok. And it's just my comments are like, why are you so concerned about what people believe? Just relax, just like if you don't want to believe, that's okay. But what do you care if someone else believes? And there's a lot trying to disprove theology. Like you and I were just having this conversation where I know that we are going to disagree on the origins of our faiths, and then from there, the validity of our faith, which I would have a lot of fun with. And sure. but when it comes right down to like the end of our conversation, I'm not sure I really care. It's like, believe what you want to believe and justify what you want to justify and how you want to do it, because just be good, just don't try to hammer somebody or, and that's why we're very critical about our own communities, you and I, about internally, about, certainly me with Wahhabism and our community, that Muslims that happen to be criminals, just like you, they have Christians that happen to be criminals, but do things in the name of. So right. I'm very critical of that, of self-governing, but there seems to be, like I said, on TikTok, I watch a lot of atheists that say that, like, are trying to take pieces of the Bible, and I'm like, listen, it doesn't make any sense if you're not into it, Right. And if you're not, and it's just like any subject, if you're not well versed in it, just like with us, people say, oh, there's a portion of the Quran that says this. I'm like, yeah, it's a story about a time when Christians and Jews were not being that nice to the Muslims. In the context of that story, yeah, they're saying these guys we have a problem with, but it's not the theology behind Islam. Later on in the Quran, in multiple places in the Quran, it says, members of the book are our buddies, and all religions need to be protected. And then it says you need to do this, and that's the obligation. But anybody who doesn't read the Quran and gets into this stuff will say this is what the Quran means. It's the same thing with Christianity. So I think
we call it seminary language for it is, we call it that proof texting versus a proper interpretation that includes context and authorship and all that kind of stuff.
And that's the thing. You need to do a little bit of work, not just find something and then run with it, right? So, but I think that. So, anyways, this article, I don't know. I thought I was going to get you.
We'll post it in the show notes.
Yeah,
you're not going to get me. So, you can't trip me up.
Wow, the vanity of Christian nationalism.
We're out of time.
Exactly.
Gee, look at the time. Look at the time. Sorry, I got a thing.
We'll promise our listeners that we'll get into it, the origins of evangelicals and the origin of Islam, and discuss. We'll have to discuss the validity of each from a theological perspective, and decide what we're going to keep and what we're not going to keep. Which is, you guys are really good.
Sounds like a plan. We will discuss Christian nationalism on future episodes of Crossing Faiths. Until then, my name is Matt Hawkins. My bearded friend is John Pinna, and this is Crossing Faiths. Hopefully, we're not too hate crime adjacent for your listening pleasure. Available at crossingfaiths.com. John.
Yeah. Thanks for everything. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate all the listeners, and I will see you again next week.
See y'all.